Oliver Twist is the kind of character that represents good in the world, and that idea that when you come into this world, you're pure. The idea that, you know, there is good in this world, and for the most part, that's what there should be, and that it sort of triumphs over everything throughout the story. And what happens is, because of the corruption that's already here most of the time, it slowly gets instilled into you, these things, these feelings of hatred and sadness and anger, and how we can look at that as an example and try to keep the idea of a pure mentality going through.
There is something in this story about the weak being preyed on by the strong, or the powerless being played on by the people with power. And Mr. and Mrs. Bumble definitely have power. I don't know that they are cruel people at heart, but she really enjoys the power that she has over those children. Mrs. Bumble does start out being Mrs. Corny, and that's important, I think. It is so in the book, and it's also true in our production, because she's a widow and runs this workhouse, takes care of these children, and has her eye on Mr. Bumble. And that's really, I mean, Dickens really brings it out in the book. They're fun people to play in a way, but they're basically very cruel. They're exactly the kind of people that one would never want to take care of one's children. And we're both represented in this production as, we're both padded out quite a bit. And I think that Ray Smith, our esteemed scenic and costume designer, wanted them to represent the kind of grossness of those who have, as opposed to Oliver and the boys being those who haven't, who don't have anything. You know, we can go ahead and eat plates and plates of food, and they're lucky if they get, you know, a tiny little bowl of something. I mean, when Oliver's taken in by the Sourberries, the undertakers, they give him the scraps that they were going to save for the dog, and he eats them, you know, with great voracity. So, Dickensian England is not exactly a pretty, merry place, no matter how much musical theater tries to convince us that it was. I think it's pretty grim.
Oliver is brought into the pack by the Artful Dodger that found him out and about in the streets of London, or outside of London, actually. He's brought in, and I am immediately attracted to this boy. I see money in this child. He's got an aristocratic air about him. The character says he has a face like an angel. He's not like all the other street kids. It's a matter of breeding or something intangible that Fagin sees in this boy and wants to cash in on. Yeah, it's. I think it's mostly financial for Fagin.
Oliver has never known any family up until when you first see him and he's introduced into the story. He's never known any kind of love, any kind of warmth, and so when you first see the two of them together, there's this idea that Fagin, and especially the way Ned is playing it, is that there's this sort of this warmth and this love that comes out of him that may or may not be genuine. As their relationship develops, and as much as Oliver may, in the end, even hate Fagin, he actually loves him just as much because, in a sense, this was the first sort of father figure or loving character that he's ever been introduced to. Someone who did feed him and, you know, let him rest and all these things that he didn't experience at a young age.
Fagin actually knows that about these boys he's gathered around him, that they are lonely, that they probably are alone, that they need someone to seem to take care of them, and he's very good at doing that.
Well, it's been wonderful. It's been fascinating. It's been a real lab. You know, we've been able to explore things and try things out and take on animal essences and in finding these characters. I had about 6 weeks to rehearse it, and so it hasn't been breathing down our back that, hey, come on, we're on a clock, we got to get this done, we got to be up in 2 weeks. So we're finding it. We're working hard, but we're trying to jam together.
I think we all sort of knew going into it, looking at the schedule, that 6 weeks is not the average amount of time to rehearse a show. It's much longer, and so from the get-go, I think we all expected to really, really dig into this script and explore the characters. And based on the auditions, even working with Neil, you get the sense that he is not your average director. And I've been going to these auditions where you walk in, they're behind the table, and they don't really look up, and you do your piece and you leave, and that's it. But I walked in, and there was no table. He was just up, circling the room, kind of dealing with things. And from the get-go, we just did exercises and explorations, and he worked with me, which was very specific, that a lot of casting directors and directors don't like you to even look at them in the eye, but he wanted to get in there with you and see what was going on. And he's an actor's director, which is terrific, and he not only creates a wonderful picture on stage, but really makes you feel like you're a part of it, and that what you have as a person to bring to the table is just as important.
In Oliver Twist, it's kind of relying on a group of actors to be everything, to be everyone that he needs, to be, you know, the mourners at a funeral, to be the boys in the workhouse, to become bystanders strolling down a London street, so that you're constantly switching gears. We're very sensitive to each other, and the singing, a lot of it is a cappella, so you really have to depend on the other people and listen, so that we really all are working like this really kind of close-knit machine. All the cogs and the wheels are greased and working together so that we can tell this story. Oliver Twist is really also this huge piece of work that we're getting to kind of sink our teeth into and share with an audience.